With the trade deadline just around the corner, there's been a lot of Toronto Raptors news come out over the past couple days, so we'll discuss all of it in this video, including the latest on the Brooklyn Nets-Toronto Raptors trade talks, the latest regarding OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet, as there's been a lot of updates regarding those guys in the past 24 hours, and Pascal Siakam speaking out on the entire trade deadline situation, and him getting asked to Masai Ujiri's office in front of a bunch of Toronto Raptors reporters. So we'll see if that actually matters. So without further ado, let's jump into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is the Pascal Siakam speaking out on all of the trade rumors and getting asked in Masai's office. So yesterday we had a pretty shocking report that the Raptors and the Nets were in talks about a potential Pascal Siakam deal. The returns had me a little bit disgusted because one of the trades that have been discussed is sending Ben Simmons as well as trade assets back in return for Pascal Siakam. So I had a full rant about that last night if you want to go watch that. That was pretty entertaining to watch back to. But Siakam had a quote about the entire trade situation right now, and basically he came out and said that I never know. I never know what's happening. Right? Even when you guys ask me all these questions, I don't know what's going on. I'm focused on the game, and that's pretty much it. At the end of the day, we know what it is. What's the point of coming here and talking every explicit of every trade deadline? We know what's going to happen. It is what it is, and whatever happens, happens. I'm at a point in my career where it really doesn't matter unless I feel like there's something going on. Now that we're in a league where if I'm unhappy, there are things that can happen. So referring to his ability to potentially move out or request a trade. But on the other hand, I'm doing my job every single day. I'm blessed to be able to live my dream and play the game, and I love and getting compensated for it. At the end of the day, I understand. I understand being here year 7 for me. It's a business. I get it. I've seen people go. I've seen people come here, and so nothing surprises me at this point. I don't look for anything until my phone actually rings. So Pascal Siakam's taking a professional approach, not reacting to any of the rumors, saying, I've been in this too long to know when to react to every single little thing, which is fair, which makes sense. And that's an interesting quote, especially the part where he said, if I'm unhappy, there's, especially the league that we're in now, we can have something done about it. So I found that was an interesting quote. But what really made his media availability interesting, what made his speech sort of interesting, is immediately following this media scrum, his quote that he just gave, Michael Grange essentially said that after he gave that quote, President Masai Ujiri motioned for Siakam to come join him in the office adjacent to the Toronto Raptors practice floor. So this is something that a lot of media outlets have been running with. It's on, NBA Central. People have been saying, hey, there was rumors about him getting traded to the Nets yesterday. He's talking with Masai Ujiri today in a cryptic meeting, in a meeting that's going on. What are they talking about? Well, Will Lou gave some added context to this that I think Michael Grange should have probably thrown out into his tweet, basically saying that the meeting was only for 5 minutes, didn't look that aggressive, and Pascal Siakam was coming out smiling, laughing, giggling after the meeting. So it didn't seem as if Masai Ujiri was saying, hey, you're about to be dealt, you're about to be going to Brooklyn in a trade for Ben Simmons or whatever the heck people are speculating on about. So while it's not guaranteed he's not going to get moved, while it's not a sure thing that he's going to be on the Toronto Raptors following the trade deadline, don't read into him meeting with Masai Ujiri as a sure thing that he'll end up getting dealt. I probably wouldn't be putting my money on him getting traded ahead of this trade deadline, despite my ferocious rant about those trade discussions last night regarding Ben Simmons. But if you guys are have a gut feeling, you feel sure about what's going to happen, what the landscape of the NBA is going to look like following this trade deadline, you want to bet on it? Definitely check out the CoolBet Sportsbook. They're a sportsbook regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada. And you can bet on every single Toronto Raptors game, NBA game, and a lot of special stuff as well. Futures regarding standings. And they have an interesting future going on right now with LeBron James close to passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record. You can bet on whether or not it's going to be assisted, what game it will be in. The Lakers play tonight. He could potentially do it in the game tonight. Lots of weird bets you can go on there to make the game a little bit more interesting. So definitely, if you are interested in sports betting, check out the CoolBet Sportsbook. It's the best place to do it, and they've been supporting the podcast. So shout out to CoolBet. But we have a lot more Raptors news to discuss. And next we're taking a look at an update on the Toronto Raptors and Brooklyn Nets trade talks. And the Nets and Raptors obviously have a lot of pieces that could potentially be dealt, have been in a lot of discussions around the entire NBA. And Jake Fisher also came out and said today that the Toronto Raptors, all the discussions seem to be going through the Toronto Raptors at this point today. But Ian Begley of SMY came out and basically said, and that's why members of the Nets spent Monday talking to the Toronto Raptors about potential trades. Sunday in Brooklyn, they were in touch with Toronto during the Kyrie Irving trade talks, and sources confirmed that the two teams touched base on Monday. The Nets and Raptors discussed the possibility of a Fred VanVleet deal before the Kyrie Irving trade became official. As Mark Stein reported, we discussed this on yesterday's video, but you can be sure that the Nets will be calling the Toronto Raptors, among other teams, over the next few days as they look to upgrade their roster. So just because the Kyrie deal didn't, the Raptors couldn't attach themselves to that deal, they will still be discussing potential possibilities. As we talked about yesterday, they're still interested in Pascal Siakam, making different moves. Fred VanVleet is still a guy that's on the Brooklyn Nets radar. So deals could still potentially go down. The Brooklyn Nets, in the aftermath of the Kyrie Irving trade, the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant have been having ongoing conversation about the direction of the franchise, but the organization has thus far told inquiring teams that they're not planning on making a trade before Thursday's deadline. Sources have told ESPN. So it doesn't look like the Nets are going to move on for Kevin Durant, so it indicates that they want to win now. They want to build a team surrounding KD, which makes sense, is why they're interested in some of the Raptors' top guys now at this point. And that swings us into our OG Anunoby trade update, as there's been a lot of news regarding OG Anunoby as of right now. So basically, Jake Fisher came out and said that there have been the Lakers, the Nets, the Suns, the Blazers, the Pacers, the Knicks, and the Grizzlies have all been interested, have all been linked to an OG Anunoby deal, a potential deal going down on that front. But that was followed up by a report that came out today from Bleacher Report that says the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks are not actively pursuing the Toronto Raptors forward OG Anunoby at this time. So that's again from Jake Fisher. Things are literally changing by the hour right now. And basically, to give context, he's saying that Fisher added the Raptors' requested return for the 24-year-old is very, very high. So, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up going down on that front. Obviously, OG Anunoby is a dude that is putting up remarkable stats this season, is an elite defender at 17 points per game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals a night, doing his thing, knocking down the three-point shots. So there's going to be bidding wars. There are going to be teams interested in acquiring OG. And the Miami Heat, there's also a report that came out that indicated that they were also interested, or members within their organization view OG Anunoby as a top 20 two-way player in the NBA. So the value is high. The demand is high there for OG Anunoby. And even if the Brooklyn Nets and New York Knicks do pull out, Eric Kareen has talked about how the Pelicans and the Grizzlies could get involved. So lots of crazy stuff that could be going down. Let me know what you guys think could potentially happen. I don't even want to read too much into these reports because it seems to be changing by the hour. And we'll probably drop a video later tonight breaking down all the news that breaks this evening. And the final thing we're discussing is that there are multiple suitors named for Fred VanVleet. Now, Fred VanVleet has also been a name that's been thrown around in a lot of trade discussions, and obviously is a guy that won a championship with the Raptors, has his deep history, but given his contract situation come this summer, potentially free agent will likely decline his player option and has been playing better as of late, is likely a guy that won't pick up that player option given he's averaging 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting close to 30. He's getting back to that 35, close to 35% three-point range mark, right? Is a dude that the Raptors might not be able to bring back in free agency. So reports have come out now that there are a lot of suitors. Several opposing executives have since labeled Fred VanVleet as the most likely Raptor to be traded ahead of Thursday's trade deadline. A pair of Western Conference contenders in the LA Clippers and Phoenix Suns have been often mentioned as Fred VanVleet suitors. The Lakers, the Mavericks, as well as the Minnesota Timberwolves have registered interest in Fred VanVleet. Sources have said Fred VanVleet is expected to decline that $22 million option for the 2023-2024 season in search for a pay raise that approaches a maximum salary and certainly north of $30 million. So that's an update there in terms of all the teams' interested. We knew the Clippers were interested. We knew the Suns. Timberwolves are an interesting name because obviously they have D'Angelo Russell, who they're not sure they're going to bring back in free agency this year. So, Fred VanVleet is dealt. That could be an interesting sort of situation. There was also some chatter yesterday about the Orlando Magic potentially making a deal for Fred. And a report came out from Matt Moore, who mistakenly labeled Jalen Suggs as a third pick in the NBA draft. I don't have the screenshot up for it, but basically said that the Suns are looking for, if the Orlando Magic, Freudian slip, I don't know why I keep saying the Phoenix Suns, but if the Orlando Magic were to send Jalen Suggs to Toronto in a Fred VanVleet trade, they'd also want draft compensation, which, I don't know. Suggs would be cool. I know we almost drafted him, but we picked Scotty Barnes instead, but I'm not giving Fred and draft compensation for Suggs. Maybe if he's leaving for nothing, it's like second round picks, but no way I'm giving up one of our first round picks or close first round picks unless there's serious protections on them, for Jalen Suggs. But let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with everything surrounding the Toronto Raptors team. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.